One of the most amazing things about VR is the fact that it takes you into another world, it teleports you somewhere, and that's fantastic for games that tell you a story, that tell you a narrative. But for that reason, we had to make the assembly.
We didn't want to just make a game that worked in VR. We wanted to build a game from the ground up, especially for VR, that utilized all of VR's amazing capabilities.
The Assembly is a collective of scientists, academics, and engineers who are all about knowledge for the sake of knowledge, but they're not interested in government oversight, and they're even less interested in society's morals. Into this mix, we throw the game's two protagonists, Cal and Madeline. This allows the player to observe the Assembly from two contrasting perspectives.
We wanted to create a world which immersed the player, an environment that felt real to them, really focused on the best VR experience possible.
Creating worlds in VR has become more like real-world environment creation. You have to consider things like real-world scale, how your levels unfold in front of the player. You have to consider your set dressing of scenes a lot more as well. You tend to find that a player walks into an environment and they see something that feels out of place. It will stand out to them right away.
When you ask people what they want from a virtual reality game, they'll tell you they expect to be able to explore an environment as easily and freely as they do in real life. So, along with the more familiar dual analog first-person controls, we've also developed a control scheme that makes exploring the virtual environment as accessible for absolutely everyone.
In VR, some of the traditional mechanics you're used to in games don't work brilliantly, such as really laden HUDs full of information, inventory screens, things like that. So we've tried to find a way to enable the player to experience the world more naturally. So there's lots of signs that people have left around, notes, emails, physical objects that you can examine and learn about the environment that you're in.
If a player gets lost in your environments, you can't rely on them to look into a menu system to look at the map and realise where they are. You have to give them visual cues and waypoints within the world to help them go through.
Instead of having a map on your HUD, there's actually maps placed within the environment that players can stop and look at and work out what rooms are where. The game also has a soundscape that leads you through the environment. So when you're walking around, you might hear someone talking behind a door or a phone ringing in another room and kind of want to go and find out more.
I'm really looking forward to seeing people's reactions when they try the Assembly in VR for the first time. It's been designed from the ground up to make the best use of VR and will make a great first experience for anyone who's new to virtual reality.
So when you first put on the headset in the Assembly, you're faced with this huge air of mystery and wonder and sort of uncertainty of what's happening to you. You can hear things around the world, you can see this arid landscape of this desert in front of you. You're taken down into these corridors that you're traipsed through. You hear lots of conversations, not entirely sure what is being said or what's being talked about, and shady characters sort of slipping past, and with no answers really presenting themselves to start with. So the player's really left sort of wondering with all these things that they're looking at and what's about to happen to them. So in those first few minutes, we've used everything we've learned to make the things you see and hear in the Assembly an exciting assault on the senses.
So with the Assembly, we wanted to create somewhere that wasn't just immersive, but where you truly forgot you were in the real world and you really believed you were somewhere else.
The Assembly's gameplay takes place in the organization's secret underground bunker. That's allowed us to focus on creating a very compact and highly detailed world that, when coupled with the power of VR, becomes immediately believable.
a realistic art style is actually just scratching the surface of what's needed to make a believable world in VR. What's more important is the completeness of that world and the consistency of the details that inhabit it. The players are encouraged to look into things, around things, and underneath them. So you have to make sure that you model and texture all the details that they can get into. Underneath tables, behind sinks, and inside every coffee cup. You want to make sure that the fidelity of that detail is there so they can pick up any answers or mysteries that they're trying to solve.
But VR isn't just about graphics, it's equally about making amazing audio. Because you've got a headset on and you're listening to surround sound above and below you, as well as behind and in front of you, it's really important to get that audio right.
Audio in VR games needs a complete rethink. You could just use the same methods that you use it in a traditional flat screen game, but the biggest difference is detail. In an immersive environment like having a VR helmet on, everything is so much more intimate. You're so much closer to the action that you can just walk straight up to something, peer straight into it, and get a lot more visual feedback. So we've got to match that with the audio in order to make things feel more real. The most important thing is positional audio. It's quite an early technology, but what it does, it utilizes real true positioning to the headset. So that means that when you look at something, you can hear exactly where it is in the room, pretty much. It also means that we can define the size of a room just how you would kind of in real life, so that you have things that are far away in exactly how you feel they would be in a room of those dimensions. So, as an example, we've got these fridges in the game. You can open the doors, you can walk right up to them, but you can also look inside them. So from a VR audio perspective, it means we have to detail all the little elements, like the fans, the lights, everything, all these little tiny little bits. And then when you're finished, you can actually go around the back, listen to the hum of the generator, all the extra little fans and things on the back and things like that. Even the most banal little objects in the game become kind of fascinating visually and from an audio point of view.
So by creating a detailed world full of beautiful artwork and realistic sounds, we've made a game that will make people feel like they've been teleported from the real world to somewhere else.
For the story of the assembly, we didn't just want to rely upon the emotional amplification that VR provides. We wanted to leverage that and really make the most of it by telling a really engaging story that gripped players, that gave them moral choices to make as they progressed and immersed them in the world.
Larson, don't tell me you're mixed up in this too.
With the assembly, we've created what I think is quite a mature and realistic storyline. And I think you might find that players, I think it's closer to a gritty TV series than a traditional video game story.
We wanted to capture the player's imagination, so the themes we explore in the assembly are inspired by current events and real-life concerns. Life-changing technology is being developed at an increasingly rapid rate, and recent disease pandemics have sparked real-life concerns. There are people who think that both the spread and cure of such contagious diseases could be man-made, and that there could be a corporate agenda behind such outbreaks.
So we had all these amazing themes we wanted to convey, and we needed a way for the player to be able to experience and explore them. This led to the creation of the Assembly, a morally ambiguous organisation working outside the remit of the government on projects that they think will advance humanity. The fact that they're working outside the law enables them to push the boundaries and not have to worry about the legal constraints that restrict experimentation. So whether that's cryonics or nanotechnology or mind control, these are things they can all explore without having to worry about the repercussions in the eyes of the world. It's hard to argue that the Assembly hasn't done things that make the world a better place. But whether the Assembly are good or bad isn't a decision that the game makes for the player. It's something the player gets to make for themselves as they explore the environment and learn more about the organisation. Having two characters allows us to give the player two different perspectives of the Assembly, both narratively and as a VR experience. That's what led to the creation of the characters of Cal and Madeline.
And let me be the first to officially welcome you to our facility.
Yes, there's nothing more welcoming than being kidnapped.
Madeline Stone is being inducted into the Assembly, and while her initial experience with them is negative, they're trying to sell themselves to Madeline and show all the good that they can actually do.
Oh. I must say I was expecting something more medical.
Your medical credentials aren't in doubt. But we need to understand who Madeline Stone is, and whether she has what it takes to help the Assembly achieve its goals.
Cal Pearson, however, is a veteran of the Assembly.
You want me to wear these to the party, Jen? You should make them charge faster.
He fully understands what good they can do, but now events have forced him to face the darker side of the organization that he's chosen to ignore for so long.
Live samples. I seriously hope they didn't already start live trials with a new Cassius strain.
So narratively, you get to see two different sides of the Assembly, but you also get to physically embody these two different characters, different heights, different sounds, different speeches and personalities.
I'll need Chavez's keycard to get in.
So we're using VR to amplify the player's immersion in the characters.
Okay. It's very pretty.
Whereas making decisions in a typical game can be quite hard, in VR, because you actually believe you're there, everything's much stronger, and those decisions can be incredibly tricky.
We're not guiding the player to come to any specific conclusion about the Assembly. We've purposely designed the narrative to allow players to introduce their own emotions and feelings into the game, to be influenced by their own experiences both inside and outside the story.
The Andromeda Galaxy, Milky Way's intergalactic neighbor. In a far, far future, and dictated by gravity, Andromeda and the Milky Way will collide. In the distant past, however, the Andromeda Galaxy harbored tons of civilizations, one of which actually was humankind. Yes, contrary to common belief, Andromeda is the cradle of humanity. The eternal wars that destroyed the spiral arm caused humanity to send seed ships to the Milky Way, effectively colonizing Earth with their DNA. Yes, you, my friend, are an Andromedan. Now, you can go back eons in time to the roots of humankind and redecide the outcome. Determine our fate at the dawn of Andromeda.